Hi, this is Usha. Welcome to Rathod Science classes. Today in this lecture, we are going to discuss current affairs of 8th August 2021. In this lecture, we are going to discuss 8 topics which are very much relevant to UPSC. So let's get started with our discussion and let us see first topic. Title says Neeraj spares historic Olympics gold. So this article which is mainly talking about Olympics gold medal. So this article is very important, okay, because we got gold medal, that is first gold medal in this Olympics, okay. So this article will be important from sports point of view. Actually, you can't get questions from sports in your UPSC, but if you are preparing for any state public service examinations, you can get question from this topic, okay. So now let us try to see some details and let us try to understand why this article is important. So if you see context, it mainly says that in Japan, the land of rising sun, India found its brightest athletic star. So one question I want to pose you here is why Japan is called as the land of rising sun. So let me know answer for this question in comment box and don't forget, okay. So in Japan, okay, as we all know, Olympics is going on. So in this Olympics in Tokyo, so India found its brightest athletic star. So name of that star is Neeraj Chopra. He got gold medal. Okay. So this is the nation's second individual gold at Olympics. Actually earlier in 2008 we got gold medal and now in this year we got this gold medal again. So because of this is important. And now let us see next topic. Title says Sundarbans is now drowning in plastic. So this article mainly focusing on plastic pollution in Sundarbans. So let me know where are these Sundarbans are located, because if you are following our channel daily, so we already discussed about what are wetlands, what are the economic services, and as well as what are the services which are provided by wetlands. And we also discussed about the Sundarbans number of times. So it is your choice and it is your turn to revise those all the things already we discussed in our earlier lectures, and let me know comment box what you know about the Sundarbans, like which are the trees are seen there and which type of reproduction that is seen in that Sundarbans and which type of animals, flora, fauna that is seen in that areas. So why Sundarbans are very important. So please let me know answers for all these questions in comment box. Okay, so now this article says that there is plastic pollution that is seen in this Sundarbans. Okay, Sundarban, as we all know, it is one of economically fragile ecosystem that is present, but here now it is posing threat from this plastic. So this article will be important from Environment and Ecology, which comes under GS paper 3. So now let us try to see what is the context and some important details regarding this topic. So if you're talking about context, it mainly says that unregulated inflow of relief to Sundarbans, which has mainly resulted a new crisis. So now in this Sundarbans, we are seeing a new crisis. So actually, we know that recently Cyclone Yas hit this region, and because of this Cyclone Yas, that led to inundation of many areas. And now this cyclone battered region, it is mainly posed a threat by this plastic waste. So why it is in news? Because recently many NGOs, experts, officials of district police and forest department, they pointed out that plastic is accumulating on isolated islands of this fragile ecosystem, and it is one of great cause of concern now. So now we are seeing there is a plastic pollution that is highly seen in this fragile ecosystem in this Sundarbans. So this is a one of cause of concern which is mainly posed by number of NGOs, forest departments, activists, etc. And if you see some important details which are given in this topic, it mainly says that days after Cyclone Yas, which inundated large parts of Sundarbans, now it is posing a threat from plastic waste. About some tons of plastic waste that is seen in remote areas of Sundarbans. So in this remote areas of Sundarbans, now we can see some tons of plastic which is accumulated. So people who are residing in these areas are not responsible for this huge plastic waste, but the people who are outsiders of these areas, they are mainly introducing this plastic, okay. And actually these outsiders, they are very much important reason for increasing of plastic waste in this region. But one tragedy here is, so these people who are responsible for this plastic waste in this region, they ignorant about what are the long-term impacts of this plastic pollution. Okay, so recently what happened, NGO, non-governmental organization, recovered about 30 kgs of plastic waste in this Sundarban area. And according to estimates, they said that it is very much difficult to estimate total amount of plastic waste. So it is also very much difficult to estimate total amount of plastic waste arriving in about 50 inhabited islands of the Sundarbans that are present across thousands of square kilometers. So in this thousands of square kilometers of the Sundarbans, so inhabited islands are present, right? And it is very much difficult to estimate total amount of plastic, that is plastic waste, that is seen in these 50 inhabited islands of the Sundarbans. And if you're talking about what will be impact of this plastic pollution, why we are very much concerned about that. So as you know, here Sundarbans, we can see here intertidal area, right? So here we have this Bay of Bengal. So in this Bay of Bengal region, we can see saline water is present, right? So whenever plastic which is present in this saline water, that will lead to increase in toxicity of water gradually. So as you know that in this water, it is leading to some biodiversity, and some inland, in water also there is biodiversity that is present, right? So it will be causes much harm to organisms, and we can say fishes, some water and aquatic animals which are present in this area, they are posing a great risk. So first and the foremost thing you need to remember here is, due to presence of plastic in saline water, that will lead to increase in toxicity of water gradually. So this is one cause of concern, and that will be great risk to animals which are present in that area. And it will also lead to eutrophication. So I discussed about this eutrophication number of times, right? So please let me know what is this eutrophication. I want to give you a small hint. So this eutrophication leads to algal blooms. Okay, algal blooms mainly caused by eutrophication. And let me know in comment box what is about this eutrophication. So if you don't know about this eutrophication, and let me know in comment box. In tomorrow's lecture we are going to discuss that. So if you know what is the term, what is the meaning of this eutrophication, and let me know in comment box. And one more cause of concern here regarding this plastic waste is that will also leads to increase in microplastic. So what are these microplastics? So recently we studied about this microplastic, right? So in Ganga river system, in Yamuna river system, there is increasing of plastic, that is microplastic, especially in Haridwar and some other pilgrimage areas or pilgrimage sites we already discussed. So at that time we discussed about what are this microplastic, and we discussed about especially size of this microplastic. And students who already enrolled into this current affairs package, so I gave question regarding this microplastic twice, and also I gave questions regarding this microplastics in our prelims practice test that will be conducted on every Sunday, right? And now let me know about some details of this microplastics, okay, which you know in comment box. So if you don't know about this microplastics, again let me know. In tomorrow's lecture we are going to discuss that. This microplastic is a very important topic, and for sure this year prelims and mains you can get a question from microplastic for sure. Okay, so here what happened, whenever there is increasing of plastic waste, that will lead to disintegration of plastic sometimes, and that will lead to creation of microplastic. So microplastic will have a specific size, so that size you need to comment me in comment box. Okay, so this microplastics, whenever the increase in concentration of this microplastic that is seen in this area, then that will slowly enter into food system or food chain. So even when we are using the sunscreen lotions, what happen? So whenever we are using sunscreen lotions, and whenever we are washing it, and whenever we are using that, so these microplastics which are present even in our sunscreens, and as well as even in some cosmetics like face washes, etc., that will be entered into drainage system, right? And that will be connected to many rivers, and so that will be leading to transport of this microplastics from cosmetics, face washes, sunscreen lotions towards what? Towards this water, okay, that is like oceans, etc., rivers, etc. And even yesterday's in one article, I think in Indian Express, which mainly said about this, recently Taiwan or some country which mainly banned, okay, use of sunscreens because it is causing some damage to even corals. Okay, so in this way, because of increasing microplastics, that will slowly enters into our food chain and food ecosystem also. So these are some important impacts of increasing plastic pollution. And next one is Sundarbans, they were connected to sea. Okay, even Sundarbans are connected to sea. Whenever there is increase in plastic pollution in the Sundarbans, and finally this plastic will also enter into ocean, that will affect marine biodiversity, right? So these are some important important impacts of this microplastics and as well as plastic waste on our marine biodiversity. Okay, so these are the some important points that you need to remember, and don't forget about your homework. And now let us see next topic. Title says most parents trust conventional learning. So this article mainly focusing on conventional learning. So what is the background? So due to this COVID-19 pandemic, we moved from conventional learning, that is offline learning, okay, offline learning towards online learning. So what is offline learning? Offline learning means we are going to schools or colleges and we are sitting in benches and we are having our classes directly. Okay, so teacher will come in contact with us, teachers will be asking questions and teacher will be monitoring our performance. Okay, but if you're talking about online, we're sitting before a laptop or a system or a mobile phone or tablet and we are listening to classes which are delivered by teachers. But here what happens, so even in online things, so teacher cannot know whether if they are conducting any test, whether students he is writing on his own or whether he is copying outside, so teacher will not know that. Okay, and as well as personal monitoring will be not there. So even sometimes what happens if there is any poor connectivity of internet in some areas, so here classes will be interrupted. So here recently one research or survey which mainly done. So in this survey, it mainly said that most of the parents, they will trust conventional learning than compared to that of online learning. So this is the thing which mainly said in this topic. And this topic will be important from your GS paper too, which mainly comes under your education part. Okay. So now let us try to understand this topic in a very great detail. So if you see context, it mainly says that a survey conducted among 5,000 respondents. Okay. So a survey mainly conducted among this 5,000 respondents. So these respondents includes different stakeholders like parents, students and as well as academicians. So this survey conducted in 30 major cities across the country. So this study mainly suggested that around 93% of parents who are respondents, they strongly believe that traditional methods of learning like personal interactions with teachers, writing and as well as learning and practical learning, that will best suited for children rather than this online learning. So here key highlight of this study is 93% of parents, they strongly believe that some traditional methods of learning like sitting in schools, okay, and as well as personal interactions with teachers, personal monitoring and as well as personal monitoring regarding writing and learning and as well as practical learning. So this will be best suited for children than compared to online learning we are mainly moving nowadays. So they were worried about physical and mental well-being of their children. So whenever class is happening, child may not be attentive and child may not be listening classes. So what happened whenever children who are not interested in studies, so one problem I personally experienced is with my children itself, if they are not interested means they will on the class and they will sit idle, okay, and they will be start playing with any other things which are present beside there like pencils, books and as well as so and so. So they will be not that much attentive, okay. So because of this, it might be affect children physical and as well as mental well-being for sure, right? So these are some important problems mainly said by parents, and parents, they mainly feel that physical interactions, writing and learning, practical learning, they will be best suited for children. And if you see some details which are given in this article, it mainly says that, so this survey mainly shows schooling in the time of pandemic in order to determine low online classrooms impacted various aspects of learning and as well as student development. So here this survey, title of this survey is Schooling in the Time of Pandemic. So this survey mainly says that, so when we are going for online teaching, it mainly impacts various aspects of children learning and as well as student development. And if you're talking about highlights of this report, it mainly says that 33% of parents, they expressed concern over effectiveness of online learning environment. So regarding this online learning environment, parents mainly expressed their concern. So they said that this online learning may hamper their child's ability to be competitive in future. And 36% of parents, they were worried about long-term psychological impact of online learning on their children. And next one is ability of faculty and teachers to monitor student activities significantly, that will go down. So here participative learning, okay, so when we are comparing with that of this participative learning than compared to that of online learning, so here teachers and faculty, they are facing some problem like how to monitor students activities. Okay, so here because of this socio-psychological impact, so we can see socio-psychological impact on both faculty and as well as students, that is seen regarding this online learning. And if you're talking about some issues which are faced mainly by students and also parents and teachers is, so teachers and students, they are facing problem regarding connectivity issues. So many remote areas or rural areas, they do not have proper internet connectivity. So this is one important problem they are facing. And also one more problem they are facing is there is lack of dedicated student space at home. Okay, there is lack of student space at home to sit in a single room to go and to watch these videos and to watch this online classes or to study. And next one is about 67% of students, they have this internet connectivity issues. Okay, so there is no proper internet connectivity. And next one is better educated parents. So for children who are having better educated parents, so they were more capable of supporting children education through direct assistance, or they are having some higher expectations and they provide some resources for children for their education. But what about poor parents, or what about this illiterate parents who are come from family of agriculture? They can't provide that thing, right? So because of this, children who are having better educated parents, they will be having some advantages when we are comparing with our parent who are illiterate or coming from some poor background. So what is the need? So finally that article says that we need hybrid model, we need a combination of both online and offline model. So this will be more effective. So this is gist of this topic. Now let us see next topic. Title says ancestral Dravidian tongues spoken on Indus Valley sites. So this article mainly talking about Indus Valley sites, what are the languages which are mainly spoken. Okay, so this article, it is a very important. And one more thing I want to focus here is, so recently one IVC site which got UNESCO's World Heritage Site. So let me know which site got this IVC's World Heritage Site. And this is the first site of Indus Valley Civilization which got this IVC heritage tag. Okay, sorry, which got this UNESCO World Heritage tag. So let me know that site name in comment box. And next important thing here is, recently IVC is in highly news because one site got this UNESCO's World Heritage tag. And again it is talking about important evidence of ancestral Dravidian languages, or they were possibly spoken by these IVC people. So for sure in this year's prelims and as well as mains, you can get question regarding this IVC for sure. So students who want to attempt this year prelims and mains, so please be focused on this topic. And this topic will be important from your art and culture point of view, which comes under GS paper 1, and even from ancient India, okay, which comes again from GS1. Okay, so art and culture will be important from both prelims and mains, and here ancient history will be important only from your prelims. Okay, so now let us try to see this topic in a very great detail, and I will try my level best to make you understand this topic. So why it is in news? Why this ancestral Dravidian language is in news? Because a recent publication provided some crucial evidence regarding this ancestral Dravidian language might be possibly spoken by significant population in this Indus Valley civilization. So in this Indus Valley civilization, people, they might have possibly spoken this in ancestral Dravidian language. So because of this, one recent publication provided some crucial evidence regarding this. So if you're talking about details of this article, recently paper titled Ancestral Dravidian Language in Indus Civilization, controversed Okay, ultra conserved Dravidian tooth word reveals deep linguistic ancestry and supports genetics. So paper title says that Dravidian ancient ancestral Dravidian language in Indus civilization. Okay, ultra conserved Dravidian tooth word reveals deep linguistic ancestry and supports genetics. So if you see about this study, which mainly seeks to resolve a crucial part of perennial puzzle of South Asian prehistory. So this study mainly want to focus on some important and crucial part of puzzle regarding South Asian prehistory. So this study mainly conducting through establishing some certain existence of ancestral Dravidian language in Indus Valley civilization. So this study mainly talking about existence of some ancestral Dravidian language in Indus Valley civilization. But one problem we are mainly seeing is absence of any deciphered written documents of IVC. So till now here IVC written documents, they do not have not been deciphered yet. But one person, he was claimed that he deciphered this language of IVC, that is Indus Valley civilization, is Airavatan Mahadevan. Okay, so this person mainly said that yes, I deciphered, but till now officially we know that so there is absence of any deciphered written documents of IVC. Okay, so now let us try to talk about this topic in a very great detail. And if you see, because of this problem, no one has been deciphered this IVC's written documents. So one important complexity here is it will contains letters and as well as numbers. Okay, so because of this, even till now no one deciphered this some written documents of IVC. So there are no direct ways of identifying Harappan language because no one has been deciphered that written documents. So now only feasible starting point to find certain proto words in IVC. So it mainly confirmed through some historical, linguistic evidences and as well as some archaeological evidences. So here this archaeological evidences, some historical evidences, linguistic evidences, they indicates that objects signified by those proto words were preventively produced and used. Okay, so mainly by confirming through this historical, linguistic evidences and as well as archaeological evidences, which mainly indicates the object mainly signified by those proto words, they were preventively and as well as produced and used. So analyzing by numerous archaeological and as well as linguistic and archaeogenetic and as well as historical evidences, here recent study found that some proto words, for example, they used Piri and as well as Piru for elephant, mainly used by Bronze Age Mesopotamia, and also ivory word. So for using of this ivory, they will call as Pyrus. Okay, Pyrus recorded in certain 6th century BC Old Persian documents. So words mainly carried were all borrowed from Pilu. Okay, Pilu, it is a proto-Dravidian elephant word. So after analyzing this Dravidian grammar and as well as phonology, so elephant related words includes Pilu, Pilla, Pallava and as well as Pilluvam. Okay, so these are some important words. They are mainly used for elephant. Okay, so it is according to Dravidian grammar and phonology. So here in this, here root word here is Pal. So because of this, here the study said that might be, okay, it is not confirmation yet, but here IVC people, they might be used this ancestral Dravidian language. So even they came with one disclaimer that so it might be wrong, it would be wrong to assume that only single language or language group was spoken across 1 million square kilometers areas of this Indus Valley civilization. Even today, people across this some areas like greater Indus Valley areas, they speak several tongues like Indo-Aryan and also Dardic language or Iranian language. So it might be wrong, but this study mainly found so and so details. So now let us try to see next topic. Title says warming aurorae. So this article focusing on Jupiter. Okay, Jupiter aurorae. Okay, so here you need to know about what is meaning of aurora first of all, and you need to know what is this Jupiter aurora. So if you're talking about Earth in North Pole and as well as even in South Pole, we can see aurora borealis and as well as aurora australis that is seen. So in the same way, this type of aurora also found on Jupiter also. So this article will be important regarding science and technology, which comes under GS paper 3. So now let us try to see this topic in a very great detail. So if you see context, it mainly says that an international team of researchers, they found the mechanism behind Jupiter's atmospheric heating. So behind this Jupiter's atmospheric heating, recently researchers they found one mechanism which is mainly important, and this mechanism which is present behind Jupiter's atmospheric heating. So here in this study, researchers used this Keck observatory which is located in Hawaii. And by using this observatory, they created most detailed and at global heat maps of this planet's upper atmosphere. And after taking this detailed heat maps of this Jupiter atmosphere, so they confirmed that Jupiter's powerful aurora, which is mainly responsible for heating of planet. So heating of planet because of this Jupiter's powerful aurorae. So temperature mainly start very high within this aurora. Okay, so within this aurora of this Jupiter, there is temperature which mainly starts very high, and despite of they taking up to 10% of area of Jupiter. So this aurora which mainly about 10% of total area of Jupiter, but although it is 10%, but it is leading to increase in heat. Okay, heat of whole planet, that is complete planet. So this study mainly confirmed that equatorial heating is directly associated with this auroral heating. So these are some important facts which are given in this topic. And now let us try to see what is the meaning of this aurora. So scientists mainly observed that massive amounts of energy swirlings, energy swirlings over Jupiter polar regions. So nothing but during nights, especially in these polar regions, we can see green color, red color, and as well as blue color lights that will be seen. So this is nothing but aurora. So scientists observed that massive amounts of energy swirling over Jupiter's polar region, and this massive amount of energy which is swirling over this Jupiter, they contribute to giant planets' powerful auroras. So this is one of important reason for contribution of this giant planets' powerful auroras. So what is meaning of aurora first of all? So if you see about aurora, it is a natural electric phenomena which mainly characterized by appearance of streams of reddish greenish lights which is seen in sky. So which if you see in night sky, you can see reddish and greenish bright light. So it is mainly caused because of some electrical phenomena. Okay, so it mainly seen near magnetical poles like south and as the north poles. So this auroras mainly caused by interaction of charged particles from the sun with atoms in upper atmosphere. So whenever here what happened, whenever we have sun, so from sun we will be getting sunlight, right? So it will be having small particles. So whenever these charged particles which are coming from sun, they are interacting with atoms which are present in our upper atmosphere, that will leads to electrical phenomena, right? And that will appear like a reddish greenish light in our night sky. So this is phenomena of aurora. So now let us move on to next topic. Title says ancient viruses. So this article mainly talking about ancient viruses, and this topic will be important regarding GS paper 3 under science and technology. So now let us try to understand this topic in a very great detail. So if you see context, it mainly says that scientists, they have found viruses in glaciers of China's Tibetan Plateau. So as we know here, China's Tibetan Plateau, in this area we are having many glaciers. So in these glaciers, scientists they found virus which is present, okay. And if you are talking about age of this virus, it is about 15,000 years old. So we can say 15,000 years old of virus that is seen in glaciers of China's Tibetan Plateau. So if you see about some facts regarding this virus, so they survived by remaining frozen. So even in frozen things also this virus have been survived. So if you see some details, it mainly says that study which is published in Microbiome which analyzed the genetic code of 33 such viruses. So out of these 33 viruses, 28 were completely new. Okay. So recently one study published in this Microbiome which mainly says that, so it mainly analyzed 33 such viruses, and out of this about 28 were completely new. And virus, it must have originated with soil or plants and not with humans or animals. Okay. So these are some important points which are mainly given in this topic. And now let us see next topic. Title says Ladakh glacier retreat due to warming, low winter precipitation finds study. So this article mainly talking about glacier retreat. So first we need to understand what is the phenomenon of glacial retreat. Let me draw a diagram. For example, let us see it is a glacier. Okay. So it is a glacier. So what happened due to some climate change, increasing of melting so and so. So size of the glacier mainly decreased to this size. So we can see here size of the glacier mainly decreased. So this decrease in size of glacier is called as in simple glacier retreat. What is glacier retreat? Size of glaciers, it is decreasing day by day, that is called as glacial retreat. So this article will be important regarding GS paper 3 under environment and ecology, and also even GS paper 3 under science and technology. So now let us try to see this topic in a very great detail. So if you see context, it mainly says that the Pensalangpa glacier located in Ladakh's Zaskar Valley. So here this glacier located in Ladakh's Zaskar Valley, so it is mainly going for retreating. That means decreasing size of this glacier. So why? What are the reasons? Because of increase in temperature and as well as decrease in precipitation. Okay, during winters especially. So in winters there is decrease in precipitation as well as there is increase in temperature. So because of this, here we can see there is retreat of this glacier that is happening. Okay. So if you see some details, it mainly says that since 2015, the Vadia Institute of Himalayan Geology, that is WIHG at Dehradun, so which is an autonomous body which mainly comes under Department of Science and Technology. So this autonomous body mainly working on various aspects of glaciology, like for example glacial health monitoring, glacial dynamics, glacial discharge, and as well as past climatic conditions. And it came up with a highlight or report highlights. So between 2015 to 2019, glacier is now retreating at an average rate of 6.7. Okay, 6.7 plus or minus 3 meters per year. Okay, that is about from 70.7 meters. Okay, 70.7 meters to we can say like 3 meters. Okay, so this from 7.7 meters to from 6 plus 3 means 9.7 meters to 3 meters, we can see the glacial retreat that is happening per every year. Okay, so 6.7 plus or minus 3 meters per year, we can see there is a decreasing of the size of glaciers. So this is one cause of concern. Okay, so what is in news? Because why it is in news? Because glaciers, it is now retreating. So how much? It is 6.7 plus or minus 3 meters per year. Glacial retreat it is happening. So what are the reasons? Reasons here is due to increase in temperature and as well as decrease in rainfall. And even this article focused on influence of debris over mass balance and retreat of glaciers end point. And due to continuous rise of air temperature, that is leading to increase in melting of these glaciers, and as well as precipitation of summer periods at higher altitudes, it will change from snow to rain. So it is also having some influence on this glacial retreat. So this is gist of this topic. And now let us see next topic. Before seeing next topic, I want to make a small announcement on this platform. So if you want to clear UPSC 2022, we came up with one excellent, highly beneficial and also highly economical course, that is current affairs package along with mains answer writing practice. So how this course will be useful to clear UPSC? So one thing you need to remember here is before entering into examination hall, you need to know 1.5 years current affairs for sure. Okay, and this is right time to join this course to cover this 1.5 years current affairs in a comprehensive manner. And second one is we are also focusing on writing practice. So mains answer writing practice. So as you all know, if you are doing hard work and if you clear prelims and if you are not focusing on mains answer writing practice, then you might not acquire this answer writing skills and you may fail in your mains. So whenever you are failing in mains, again you need to start from first, that is from prelims. Okay. So because of this, why we have to take a chance. So please join this course to focus on this answer writing practice. And next important thing here is on every Sunday we are conducting prelims practice test, and also we provide a video explanation part. So in this way, this course which is designed as per demand of UPSC. So finally, I want to say one thing, please don't take this course as a choice. Try to join this course as soon as possible and achieve your dream of clearing UPSC. So details of this course which is given in description box, so please visit that once. And if you want to talk to me directly, you can call to this number 8074765513. And now let's come back and let us see last topic of the day, that is new technique to study ultra small particles in cells. So if you're talking about even plant cell or animal cell, so shape will be varied, right? So for example, let us consider this is as a shape of cell. So inside the cell we are having nucleus. So inside nucleus we are having nucleolus, DNA, chromosomes, etc. And out of this cell we are having endoplasmic reticulum, rough endoplasmic reticulum, smooth endoplasmic reticulum, ribosomes will be there, lysosomes will be there, and we are having mitochondria, okay, ribosomes, right? So these are some important particles, or we can say some cell constituents are present. So actually if you want to go for studying of this small particles or constituents of cell, so they need to be at least cubic centimeters of a sample will be required, okay. So beyond this, if there are particles which are very, very small, we can't detect. So this study mainly talking about new study that even detects ultra small particles in cells. Okay, so this is some background, and this topic will be important regarding GS paper 3 under science and technology. Here we are going to understand about what is this absorption spectrometry, okay, spectroscopy. So this topic will be important from your nanotechnology. So this nanotechnology was important topic in your science and technology actually, right? So if you see context, it mainly says that researchers from IIT Madras and ISER Kolkata, they developed a method to detect minute quantities of chemicals in solution, okay? So they are using a variation of absorption spectroscopy, and this surpasses the systemic limit which mainly imposed by conventional absorption spectroscopy. So for this conventional absorption spectroscopy, it is having some conditions. So whenever we are following these conventional methods, we cannot detect minute things, but here this new techniques will helpful for, it's mainly helpful for identifying even minute things, okay. So this technique will illuminate the insides of cell and detects even minuscule quantities of substance which are present there. So now let us try to understand what is this technology, that is absorption spectroscopy. So this absorption spectroscopy mainly works on principle like free atoms in ground state will absorb light of certain wavelength, right? And the absorption of each element will be specific, and no other element will be absorbed the same wavelength. So for example, if you are taking any sample, so it is having some matter. So whenever we are incidenting light on this, means so here whatever the things which are present inside this sample, they will absorb light, okay. So this absorption of light which is mainly based on certain wavelength. So this important principle here on which this absorption spectroscopy works is absorption of each element is very much specific. No other element will absorb so and so wavelength same. So if you're talking about some facts, it mainly says that this absorption spectroscopy, it is an important tool, okay. It is an important tool to detect, okay, the presence of elements in a medium. So when light is incidented, okay, and sample, okay, so if you are taking any sample and if you are incidenting any light, then after this light which is passing through this sample, so here this sample will be examined by using spectroscope. So when we are using this spectroscope, we can identify lines, okay, based on absorption of light. So dark lines are seen in observed spectrum of light which mainly passed through sample, which correspond to wavelength of light absorbed. So which wavelength of light absorbed, based on that it will be giving some lines, okay. And next one is, if you're talking about usual methods, cubic centimeter of sample it is needed to do this experiment. And now in this new method, so even minute amounts or very, very small minuscule amounts of dissolved substances can also be detected easily, okay. So this is the one important advantage of this method over conventional absorption spectroscopy. Okay, so this is the thing which is mainly discussed in this topic, and here you need to know what is absorption spectroscope. So that will be important from your prelims point of view. And there is one more article on page number 12, that is regarding vaccination policy. Mainly it says that private people also go for production of this vaccine, mainly to achieve our target to get herd immunity, and we are expecting third wave of coronavirus now. So recently some reports also says that already a third wave which have been started in India, and we are going to see peak in months of September last week or October. Okay, so because of this, mainly to avoid that and mainly to decrease a loss, so we need to go for taking of vaccine. And I will suggest you people, if you have not taken vaccine till now, so please move forward and take vaccine. Okay, so you can read that article and you can easily understand that. So by this we are concluding today. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to like, share and comment my videos. And don't forget to enroll to this current affairs package. Thank you.